A young wide-eyed dreamer from France made her way to America, hopeful to make a summer full of memories in a foreign land. With a Polaroid camera in hand, 22-year-old Muriel Ripaud arrived in Florida, greeted by her sponsor family. Then she set out to one place she had always dreamed of going to in the United States.
All roads lead to Nashville, you're never far away. All roads lead to Nashville, music sweet.
She set out on a road trip to catch a gospel concert in Nashville. From there, she planned to travel west to California before returning home, but she never made it past a Hickman County motel room. She was discovered by a housekeeper, stabbed to death. Inside the trash can, there was an unusual item. In her final moments, did Muriel leave a clue for detectives to find her killer? This is Tennessee Murder Trails. Retired TBI agents recounting their cases. In an unprecedented look inside high-profile murders in Tennessee, with Joe and Mike's 75 years of combined experience and Emmy-winning journalist Alex, let's solve the murder of Muriel Ripaud.
Mike, the year was 1985, and this was your first murder case. What were you feeling as you approached the scene?
Worried. I wanted to do the right thing. I didn't want to make any mistakes. Focused, because I knew this was it. This is what I thought about for years growing up. But I wanted to be a homicide investigator. But also anxious and excited that I'm going to learn a lot of stuff on this case, hopefully, and I did.
What was the scene at the motel when you pulled up?
The motel itself was like a standalone structure that had the same appearance of the Bates Motel from the movie Psycho. It was in a very rural area. The only other things that were around was a restaurant and a gas station, but it was very secluded. There were people standing outside, including the sheriff and deputies, but it was just the common look of walking into this a room of horror, that what we would see.
A seasoned agent had called you and requested your presence at the scene. Did he give you any details? Did you know what you were walking into?
No details other than when Jerry Tenry, who was the agent, contacted me, he stated that, "I need your help. We have a murder in a motel room." And he told me where it was, in a little town called Bucksnort, Tennessee. I didn't even know where Bucksnort was, but it was actually off Interstate 40. Just one exit. And when I arrived, Jerry was there along with the sheriff. The sheriff and then the deputies had already entered the room, looked at what they had, and they backed out and called TBI. Jerry arrived, and I arrived there shortly after. So at that point, it's a process of everything slows down. We're going to take our time. We're going to talk about what we're going to do, and also what we had, who was in the apartment, and so forth.
So you push open the door to room 104. What do you see?
Sheriff's office. Is anyone in here?
Oh, no.
It was a room that was disarrayed with all kinds of stuff like beer cans, cigarettes, bed was unmade, clothing, things laying around, but also her body that was at the foot of the bed. She was in a fetal position as if she was sleeping at first. That was what it appeared to be. But then when you walked in, you saw the blood and the other things that happened.
Was she unclothed? Could you tell that she had been stabbed? Like, what were you able to tell from that moment?
She was nude. We could tell that once we walked in, we could see from the blood that was around her body that either she had been shot or stabbed. We didn't quite know yet. But we knew we had a lot of evidence, just what we could see with our eyes from everything that showed that she wasn't in there alone. There was probably someone else in there with her at the time of her death or before her death.
So take me back. What did you learn about Muriel?
First thing that you want to find out in any murder investigation is who is your victim, what's their identity, and that's going to lead you into, hopefully, who would want them dead. And we learned pretty quick that she was a French tourist, and she also was there, but she wasn't checked into the motel, which was unusual. We identified her vehicle that was there, and with that, we learned pretty quick, once we started the processing, that she had written a lot. She had her own diary. She took photographs, as a typical tourist would do, based on Muriel's writings. Now, we didn't find this out that day. It was probably the next day. We went to Vanderbilt University and was able to find someone who spoke and wrote fluent French, and so she helped us translate everything. So that's where it told us the real story of Muriel and her travels.
She came to be an au pair, right? Didn't she come to be with a family?
She did. She came to be in what we call a nanny. In French, it's an au pair. And she had that arranged. Unfortunately, it did not work out with the family. She never really even got to get there. So she was upset a little bit, but she didn't want to miss her chance to experience America. And luckily, she had a family that knew her, and they lived in Florida, and they invited her down. And it was a wonderful family. They helped her out, helped her kind of get on her way, and the father helped her get this car that she was going to use to drive across the United States. She wanted to go all the way out west. But one of the things that she really wanted to do was go to Nashville to go to a concert. There was a gospel music concert that she was going to attend. So she was really excited about that. This was the most unique murder investigation in my 30 years that I worked, in which the evidence that we discovered I've never seen in any other murder scene. And it was something that she did, that she left us.
Like what? What did you find around the room?
Well, not only beer cans and cigarettes and everything else that's going to be a treasure for us, but we found in the trash can photographs, and those photographs were of a male, but she took photographs of him, and the detail of the photographs helped us and led us in another direction altogether. But the photograph of him was very unique and stood out, that anyone who would look at this guy face to face, they wouldn't forget his face and his features on his face. So we had that going for us.
Do you think being 4,000 miles away from home, she found herself in a predicament that maybe she wasn't prepared for?
Yes, being from France and being a tourist, Muriel did not understand the culture and the customs of Americans. And so there were things that she did that was natural in her country that would have been dangerous in ours. For example, she picked up hitchhikers along the way. And for the most part, the people that she picked up were kind to her. In fact, one stood out in which he spent a week with her. There was no sexual relationship. She made it clear to everyone that she met that she had a boyfriend who she was in love with in France, and she was not going to do anything sexually. But what she would do, or had done, was undress in front of strangers. And this one guy, who in fact we found in jail, when we talked to him, he said that she undressed in front of me, and I had to tell her, this is not what you do in America. This is not appropriate. So he was a gentleman in that aspect, and she wrote about it. And so, but there were some others that she came across that wanted to trade her drugs for sex, and she politely declined. And there were some that truly scared her. So she did put herself in those situations, not necessarily by her lifestyle, just by the fact that she was so trusting.
Who was the room booked by?
During the early course of the investigation, of course, you want to find out who had this room. And the room was registered to a guy by the name of Levon Good. So here, great, we got a name. And once we look at Levon Good, and he's from Knoxville, but Levon Good was a victim of a robbery in Knoxville few days prior.
So LaVon was actually never at that motel. So who was the guy that checked in?
I remember reviewing the file. There was an individual showed up with a motorcycle helmet that I remember. Now, who was that guy?
True, he was the one who checked in to room 104. And if you remember, he came in wearing a helmet, but he was driving a car, according to the clerk, which was very unusual. She didn't inquire. She just thought it was strange because she said that she never heard a motorcycle come up. And then it made her get up to look out and see what he's driving. And so she was able to confirm that he was in the car.
I think that would be, to me, and as an investigator, that's an important piece of information to have. Is that a concealment of his identity, to doing what he's doing to try to, I guess, distract from certain aspects of his character?
That appeared to us so, that he was definitely hiding his identity, maybe thinking that there could be cameras in the office, which there weren't. But it was just odd that caused the clerk to peek up and investigate a little further on this guy.
Was there anything else that seemed out of the ordinary? How do you think Muriel got into that motel room?
The question was, why was she there if she had not checked into the motel? We later found out it wasn't unusual for Muriel to sleep in her car and sometimes find places that's somewhat populated for safety, for her safety. So that's what it appeared to be. She pulls up in the parking lot to sleep in her car, and this guy may have seen her, invited her into his room, or they may have struck up a conversation together. And then it was really important to interview everybody that worked there. It's just a small little area, so we're going to interview everybody that we possibly can, and we did.
Did you ever figure that out? How she got into the room? Did he invite her in? Did you ever get that piece?
We were never able to get that piece of how she ended in his room. Based on the evidence that was in the room, we knew that she drank beer and smoked cigarettes and had her fingerprints in different places, but we don't know how it came about that she was invited in the room or he drugged her in the room. I think it was more of an invitation based on Muriel. We just never was able to make a determination of how she got in the room.
So it appeared to be voluntary.
It appeared to be voluntary.
And you know from her past that she never met a stranger.
Correct.
So she could have very well just been chatting and needed a shower.
And everyone who met her, everyone, bad or good, liked her. She was just a sweet little girl, sweet 22-year-old.
Now standing in this crime scene and seeing that vibrant girl curled up in a fetal position, what were the markings? Was she badly hurt?
It was very sad from a personal standpoint because she fought for her life. She fought. We later learned that she died by her own knife that she carried for self-defense. So there was probably a moment in which she took this knife out to defend herself, and the murderer took it from her and stabbed her multiple times, and one fatal being through her heart.
How many times? You said it was brutal.
Around 20 times.
That's brutal.
And those include defensive wounds as well. So she fought. Her last thought probably was, I'm going to die here in this motel room so far away from home. And that was sad. But also we had work to do. And we had to stay focused on, we've got to find the evidence that put her murderer and her together. The motel room, as small as it was, there was an overwhelming amount of work that needed to be done, and so we needed help. We needed professional forensic scientists to come in that we have at TBI. The violent crime scene team was contacted, but they were so busy themselves that they couldn't get there until Monday, until 2 days later. So we had to protect the crime scene. We knew that there was evidence to be found, but we wanted to protect it, so we had to protect this room 24/7.
You're not just going to sit around until Monday, right? So what's your next move to start this investigation going?
Yeah, we still have a lot to do. We want to interview all the employees of the motel. and also the gas station and restaurant that's there. So we set out and talk to as many people as we can. We also want to talk to as many customers that were there during that time. And we do. We find some of them. Some of them were regulars. But we had this one guy that made it a point to return back to the restaurant to talk to us because he was there after watching it on the news.
This next part of the story fascinates me as a former broadcaster, right? You are doing these stories, you're covering crime, and you only hope that what you are telling is going to compel someone to come forward with information. In this instance, it did. You've got a good Samaritan who says, I'm going to go back to the restaurant and tell you everything I saw because I remember being there. And what he tells you is there's a gentleman there that has an identifiable marking because his eye seems to droop and he's blonde-haired. And you're thinking, I have a picture right here in my pocket of that guy. Do you pull it out? What are you thinking?
Yes, we do. And he positively identifies the guy in the picture as that's the guy I saw. But Muriel wasn't with him.
So it's like
you
a roller coaster of emotions.
You still can't put them together.
No.
But that's good news because you do know now that this guy was here.
We still had another photograph of this guy, and behind him was a unique-looking vehicle. You can see this vehicle clearly. There was enough detail that told us that this was a Pontiac Grand Prix. But also unique about it was the hood and the fender was misaligned. It was not lined up correctly, and there was a unique pinstripe. So, of course, we looking into our records to see if there's been any vehicles matching that description that had been stolen or stopped or wherever. And sure enough, in Knoxville, one was stolen. So our leads had not dried up. They were really just beginning. So off to Knoxville we go.
What do you find out in Knoxville?
We learn that there were two different victims involved by this guy. One was Levon Good, who was robbed, and the second one was the owner of the vehicle that was in the picture. And the owner actually positively ID'd the picture, the car, as his, even though we did not have it in his possession. But he said, this is the car that this guy stole. He described driving up to a nightclub. He saw a gentleman that he knew. He got out of the car while it was still running, went over and talked to him, and he sees this blonde guy walking toward his car, gets in and takes off. So we have our guy in Knoxville.
So we know that the guy in the picture back at the motel is using a name that isn't his, and he's driving a vehicle that isn't his.
Yes.
Clearly up to no good.
Clearly up to no good. So the next step is we got to find out who this guy is. We got his picture, so where do we start? Well, we start with local jails, sheriff's offices, penal institutions, correctional facilities, and we are striking up again, zero. Very frustrating. But we go to this one penal farm that's out in the middle of nowhere in East Tennessee, and we're just showing this picture around to the different supervisors, and we're getting ready to leave, kind of dejected. And one of the supervisors calls another employee, and he says, "Hey, Fred, come over here and look at this picture." And the guy walks over, and he just looks. He didn't even know why we were there, but he looks at the picture, and he says, "Oh, that's Billy Ray Moore. Yeah, I know him. What do you know about him?" "Well, he's been in and out of prison, in and out of jail. And how can you tell us that this is positively him?" And he said, "Well, see his face, see how his eye's drooping? His eye got knocked out by a police baton, so he has a fake eye. And there was some skirmish he had years before this," and he tells us the whole story. But we know, okay, we got a name, got a date of birth, and we find out it's Billy Ray Moore from East Tennessee.
And where is he now?
We don't know, but at least we have a name, we have enough information, and by this time, the crime lab is also working the scene, and they report to us that his fingerprints and her fingerprints, we send them his identification, and they're able to do a pretty quick matchup on the fingerprints that it is Billy Ray Moore's. So we've got enough probable cause to issue a warrant, a murder warrant for Billy Ray Moore. Little did we know he was currently on a tear throughout the country. He went from Tennessee to the Carolinas to Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and along the way committing crimes and assaulting other people. We don't know if he killed anybody. There was some murders out there, but we don't know if he was, we never could figure out if he was the one. But he was committing lots of crimes during his venture or his journey. This was before social media and before getting the word out quickly. So he was always 2 or 3 days in front of us, but we still searched, and this went on for a little while, about a month or so, until he was just caught on this random traffic stop in Knoxville. He went back to his roots.
So they arrest him based on a traffic stop, not that it was a stolen vehicle.
I think it was just an unremarkable incident in which he was pulled over, which a lot of times it's how it happens, or it happens as a result of a pursuit, which he was involved in several pursuits along his crime trails and just barely got away on each one. It was amazing how this guy was able to get away. And here's the sad part about this whole thing. A few weeks before Muriel was murdered, Billy Ray Moore was caught. He had attempted to rape a woman, got her in his car, and she was able to escape. She was actually spotted running totally nude down a highway. He was quickly arrested, in jail, and within a couple of weeks, I guess, he had a bond reduction hearing. This is a career criminal who had a bond reduction hearing, and his bond was lowered to where he could get out of jail. In less than a week, he murders Muriel Ripaud.
How many times have we heard that story? That's 1980, 1990, 2000. It's a continuous cycle of that situation, and I understand you have to look at the big picture here and think, will this person reoffend? And it's a gamble. You play, but people's lives are at stake, and a lot of times, and Muriel is an example of this, and the sadness of it all is she had to give her life for someone that actually should have still been behind bars.
Was it that easy, though? When he was taken into custody, did he say, "I did it"?
No. As a matter of fact, he denied killing her. He admitted meeting her and being with her in the motel room, but his story was that she was trying to get away from an American boyfriend that she had who was riding or driving a motorcycle. Well, we knew there was a guy on a motorcycle that checked into the motel. We had to run him down. We had to find who this guy was, and we were able to totally eliminate him. His prints weren't in the room. He was totally disconnected, had no connection other than Billy used that alibi that it was this guy on a motorcycle.
Do you think Billy, from the very beginning, was planting his story by walking in with a motorcycle helmet? Like, did he go there with the intent of killing someone? If he was hiding his identity from the moment he walked onto that motel's premises?
At that time, he knew he was wanted.
Yeah, you got to remember, he's already he anticipates the laws after him for the stolen car, and think of the other crimes that he has knowledge of that maybe law enforcement doesn't at that point. So I think it's a combination of just him trying to conceal his identity because of who he was. He's a criminal.
And this was also possibly just a simple crime of opportunity. He had the opportunity to meet this beautiful little girl from France and engage in conversation, and they drank some beer. And
they did not have intercourse, though.
There was no evidence that she was raped, thankfully. I think she fought to the death.
It probably that was headed in that direction, and that's what probably triggered the violent assault that took her life, was the resistance from that.
A good investigator will learn everything they can about their victim, and she was just an innocent, truly innocent girl who was so excited about coming to America and coming to Nashville and going out west on a nickel and a thread. But she was determined to make it out all the way to California. But she ends up, her life is just wasted in a motel room in Bucksnort, Tennessee.
As a mother, this is heartbreaking to me because you want your children to go off and experience the world.
Yes.
And you can only do so much to protect them. And she explains that in a beautifully written letter that was addressed to you that years later you were finally able to translate because it was written in French. And her message to you is heartbreaking. But do you feel as though you were able to bring her closure?
I think so at that time. We did, but still, that longing, that emptiness was with her all the way until her passing. I'm sure, as any parent, it's a worst nightmare to have your child die and not be able to have the chance to live and start their own family and learn love. That's the sad part of it all, and it's just a waste. And what is also equally sad is you got this guy who he served his time, but he's still alive. He gets to live out the rest of his life, and Muriel doesn't.
Monsieur, par cette lettre, I want to thank you, Mr. Wallace, and the men in your department for all the light you'll try to shed on the death of my little Muriel. I know you'll do the impossible to find the savage beast who committed this act. Nothing more terrible could ever happen to me again. Death is the negation of everything. If you have children, you surely understand all that I mean. So, whatever the truth may be, I want to know it.